Hey everyone, welcome to GSC Go Science Crazy. Today we're going to be using our color filter set to learn about color and the concept of additive color mixing. Our color filter set includes 5 differently colored transparent filters. There's one filter for each primary additive color, red, blue, and green, as well as an orange filter and a yellow filter. Before we begin, let's learn a little bit about what color is and how it was discovered. Color is how our brains interpret different wavelengths of visible light. Light, like other forms of electromagnetic radiation such as microwaves or X-rays, exists on the electromagnetic spectrum. On this spectrum exists a small sliver of wavelengths that we know of as visible light. The wavelengths in this small sliver of the spectrum make up every color that you can see. Our brains interpret these wavelengths of light using structures in our eyes called cones. These cones take in the varying proportions of red, green, and blue light hitting them and send these signals to your brain for it to create an image. Scientists debated about the nature of color for centuries, but it wasn't up until Isaac Newton in the 1660s that we understood color as a sensation created by light. In a famous experiment, Newton shined white light, represented here by the light from my flashlight, through a glass prism. He then observed as the prism refracted the light into a rainbow of its component colors. From this observation, he was able to realize that white light, such as natural sunlight, consists of all other colors of light mixing together, and that colors that we see around us are caused by colored wavelengths reflecting off of surfaces. It was here that the foundations of understanding for additive color mixing were also discovered. Now that we know a little bit about color, let's talk about the 2 ways that it's mixed. The first type of color mixing, and the focus of this experiment, is additive color mixing. This type of mixing involves the blending of different colored lights. More on this in a sec. The second type of color mixing is referred to as subtractive color mixing. Subtractive color mixing refers to the mixing of various colored pigments. Pigments are physical compounds that give an object a perceived color by absorbing all wavelengths of light besides the color that we end up seeing. For example, a red shirt appears red to us because the pigments in the shirt reflect the red wavelengths in the surrounding white light towards our eyes, while absorbing every other color of wavelength into the material. The workings of subtractive color mixing are mainly understood today using the CMYK model of the primary subtractive color wheel. This wheel, which is essential to understanding how color works in printing and photography, displays how the subtractive primary colors cyan, magenta, and yellow mix to form red, blue, and green, with black in the middle representing the mixture of all subtractive colors. Now that we've discussed subtractive color mixing and gotten it out of the way, let's finally talk about additive color mixing. Like I mentioned earlier, additive color mixing occurs when differently colored lights blend together. This process is essential to the operations of electronic displays like TVs, computers, and even the screen you're watching this on. Each pixel on the screen in front of you right now is projecting different amounts of the 3 primary additive colors in order to create the whole range of colors that you see in front of you. Additive primary colors have a mixing wheel very similar to the wheel we just went over for subtractive primary color. The primary additive colors are red, green, and blue, which mix together to form yellow, cyan, and magenta. White is in the middle, representing white light, which, like we discussed earlier, is the presence of all colors in light. Now that we've learned about additive color mixing, it's time to use our color filter set. Before we get started, let's talk about what additional supplies that you are going to need. First and foremost, you're going to need some flashlights. Not every flashlight works ideally for this experiment, so stick around for a note on flashlights in a second. Also, you're going to need a white surface, such as a wall, so that you can shine your flashlights onto it. Lastly, you are going to need to find some way to attach your filters to your flashlights. Our method involves using binder clips and tape, but feel free to use something else if you have a method you're more comfortable with. Flashlights are vital equipment for this experiment, but not every one will produce an equally clear beam of colored light. While any white light producing flashlight will produce the proper color when shown through a filter, some flashlights like this black one produce a tightly focused beam of light, while others, like this orange one, create a much more spread out, diffuse beam of light. To illustrate this difference, first look at the tight beam of blue light created by the black flashlight. Next, compare this tight beam of light to the hazy and out of focus light coming from the orange flashlight. To further emphasize the importance of picking the proper flashlights, watch how the red light, which is now attached to the orange flashlight, fails to clearly and visibly mix with the blue light coming from the black flashlight. To begin experimenting, you first need to attach your filter to your flashlight. Our preferred method of attaching a filter to a flashlight first starts with ripping off a single piece of tape. Next, grab your filter in one hand and your binder clip in the other. Open your binder clip by pinching it and use it to grip onto your filter. Finally, take the top handle of your binder clip into one hand and use your other hand to place your tape onto the bottom handle. Then use your thumbs to secure your tape to your flashlight, and you're all set. You can now easily attach your filters to your flashlight and quickly switch between colors during your experiment. Now that we're ready, it's time to experiment with additive color mixing. Begin by taking one of your flashlights and setting it up to be covered by your blue color filter. Next, by yourself or with the help of a friend, set up another flashlight of yours to be covered by the red filter. Now shine your blue light onto your white surface. While observing this, think about why the white light coming from your flashlight has turned blue as it passes through your filter. This is because the filter blocks all wavelengths of visible light contained in the white light of your flashlight's beam, except for the wavelengths that our brain perceives as blue. Repeat the same observation with your red filter. Finally, it's time to start mixing colors. Point both your red and your blue light onto your white surface about a foot apart from each other and slowly cross the beams. You should notice magenta light forming where the red and blue beams intersect. Next, switch your blue filter for your green filter and mix your red and green lights together like you did in the previous step. You will notice that red and green light mix to create yellow light. And lastly, to round off your trip around the additive primary color wheel that you saw earlier in this video, switch your red filter for your green filter and mix your blue and green lights together. When blue and green light mix, the color cyan is created. Now that we're through mixing the primary additive colors, experiment further by adding your orange and yellow filters into the mix. You can even try to mix more than 2 colors at a time with the help of a friend and some extra flashlights. What colors will you be able to create? Thank you for joining us today at GSC Go Science Crazy. I hope you learned something. For more educational fun, cool experiments, and wacky science, come visit us at www.gosciencecrazy.com. Goodbye!